Thank you for tuning in to this video from the Warrior Sword. Um, I'm going to ask you to pray, and we're recording these ahead, as many of you are watching, I will be on the road back east for several weeks, and so your prayers with everything that is going on would be deeply appreciated. If I am a little bit frustrated right now, I just spoke for 36 minutes in this message and was about 5 words from closing down, and the computer shut off. We're in the process of getting a computer. We've got money that has been donated. This is not a request for money, but we can't wait any longer. These situations with what the computer is doing has just really caused an issue. And so would you pray that we do the right things with this and get the right things and use it properly for the kingdom of God? I'm going to try to get fired up again. It's really hard after you put your heart into it for 36 minutes and then just lose it 5 words from ending it. And hopefully it won't do it again. But we're going to try again to bring this message. We're going to read from Acts chapter 6, verse 7. The title of the message is The Way Church Should Be Done. And I'm going to use quotes that I don't even remember where I got them from anymore. They come from the leadership training that I've done in numerous churches across the country, and they've been put together through the years. And so if I quote something that you're familiar with, that's probably because you've read it somewhere before. And I don't mean to not give people credit. I just don't remember where all of the quotes and things came from. But I hope that we can get back focused again after losing that, and try to bring the message to you once again. Acts chapter 6, verse 7. And the word of God increased, and the number of the disciples multiplied in Jerusalem greatly, and a great company of the priests were obedient to the faith. When church is done the right way, God's way, and people are fulfilling their part of the body, then the church moves forward. And we all have a different call in our lives and things that God has placed in us to accomplish. This story comes from the Greeks coming, and they're frustrated because they don't feel like their widows are being taken care of properly. And the apostles answered them in this chapter of Acts, and they say, it is not good that we would leave the word of God to wait tables. So they're saying we have a responsibility. So go out and find people that can be appointed to be table waiters. And most of us don't want to be table waiters in the kingdom of God. And that's just the truth of things, that we don't. But out of these table waiters came Philip and Stephen. 2 very powerful people, because they did what God had called them to do, and they fulfilled their purpose in the body. The church exploded. The disciples were multiplied greatly in what was going on, and then these men then went on to be great warriors for God. Stephen became the first recorded martyr for the church, and many wonderful things that God did through all of that. And so it is in the attitude of we accomplish what we are called to do. Not all of us are called to be preachers. And I've said that a lot, that if everybody was a preacher, there would be no need for preachers. And so we all have a responsibility, but never ever think that your responsibility isn't as important in the body as someone else's. There is no big I's and little U's, to put it in that cliche attitude. God has a purpose, and He's called you for a purpose, and you need to go after that purpose and not be going after whatever else that you're thinking might be important. An unknown person said, if you chase 2 rabbits, both will escape. So if you're trying to go after two, you're not going to accomplish what you're setting out to do. You put your focus upon that one rabbit, the one that you're really wanting, the one that God is really wanting, and that's when you accomplish your purpose in the body. There's a story told about a captain and a chief engineer in a ship, and they were arguing with each other over which one was the most important. So they decided that they would change places. The captain would become the chief engineer, and the chief engineer would become the captain. After a little while, the captain came up dirty and oil covered and came onto the bridge and said to the chief engineer, "You need to get down there. I can't get this thing to run." The chief engineer said back to the captain, "Of course you can't get it to run. It's aground." That's what happens when we try to step over into somebody else's place and position in the kingdom of God. We're both just as important. The chief engineer and the captain were both important, but they were important in different ways. When they tried to take on the role of the other, then nothing was accomplished. God doesn't mass produce, Chuck Swindoll says. God doesn't mass produce his saints. He handcrafts them, and it takes more time than we expected. We want Christians to come to the altar, get saved, and then just start acting like fully spirit-filled Christians. And it doesn't work that way. It takes God time to handcraft his saints. And he doesn't do it by mass production. He does it in our lives a little bit at a time. And it's okay that we are growing and that we are becoming what he wants us to be. He doesn't expect you to be everything you're supposed to be overnight. As he reveals the light to us, we walk in the light and we become everything that he wants us to be. H. Ross Perot said, "Eagles don't flock. You have to find them one at a time." Saints don't flock. We've got lots of people in churches that may in the terminology be called saints, but if you want people that are Christ-like, that are in the Word, that are doing what they are supposed to be doing, that you've got to go searching for them. You can find a flock of sparrows or blackbirds about anywhere, but if you want to see eagles, you got to go searching for them. I hope that's making sense to you in what is being said. I've used this often. I've probably even used it in these videos when I love to feed the birds, and I don't get to do that now where I am now, but when I was in Illinois especially, I would do that on a regular basis, and the birds got used to that. They would come in and sit on the trees and the wires during the time that I would normally go out to do that. It was like they was waiting on me. I don't know if they were or not. I don't know if they have the capacity to understand that. They do have the capacity given to them by God to know that there's food nearby. And so I would go out and I'd throw this food, these pieces of bread out into the yard, but little pieces and little scraps would fall on the sidewalk. And I like to go back into the garage and watch the birds as they would come, and they were very skittish and afraid, but they would eventually come, and many of them would go right out into the yard where the bounty was. But some was so afraid that they would just nibble on the little scraps on the sidewalk. And I used to shake my head and think, you don't realize that there's a bounty of food over there. You don't have to live off of the scraps. But that's what we do in our Christian walk so often. God has given us the bounty, but we're afraid to go over to the other side. We just want to stay where we feel more safe and secure. What was funny was if I would have decided to go out after the birds, getting to them on the sidewalk would have been a lot easier than getting to them in the yard. But they didn't realize that because they were so afraid to go into the bounty. And so often we do that. I've known leaders through the years, and I say that sincerely. And they come up with great ideas, but those ideas are crushed because they don't get the immediate acceptance. And I want to tell you, if God is giving you ideas in the kingdom, this is going to happen. It happens with every radical idea that is brought out. And someone wrote this that I copied this down from. These ideas always go through 3 phases. Number 1, the opposition phase, in which the new idea is laughed off and swiftly dismissed as ludicrous. If you come in with a new idea, just count on it. People are not going to immediately accept it, and they probably will mock you for how crazy you are to have such an idea. Number 2, the ridicule phase, in which the new idea and its supporters are hotly criticized and mocked in spite of growing popularity. So people begin to say, hey, this may not be an all bad idea, but the more that people do that, the more the ridicule comes. Read Nehemiah and the building of the wall in Jerusalem, and you will see those things taking place in that. What do these Jews think they are doing? That's what their critics said. So there's lots of critics out there. Then number 3, the self-evident phase, when the idea is finally considered so brilliant that any moron could immediately recognize its value. So just hang in there. Eventually they're going to say, it takes a moron not to understand what the value of this is. Excuse me. That's the phases that happens. But so many get crushed in the process of that because they're just thinking, oh, what a great idea, and then people don't accept it. You've got to understand that gaining God's vision for the future is exhilarating. But putting it into practice in this fallen world is very punishing. If you want to be a visionary leader, gird up for the battle, because the battle is coming, and lots of people will criticize you. Some of the most exciting visions that God ever offered to humans have languished and withered and died. Why? Because one leader somewhere saw it and felt it, but they did not have the courage to own it and act upon it. I said this to someone just the other day when we were talking. I wonder how many people out there have been called to sing or to preach and ended up doing none of that because someone told them they were crazy for believing that they could, and they just sat down and allowed their vision to be crushed. If you fail to pursue it, no matter how great the vision is, it will never become reality. Henry Ford once said, you can't build a reputation on what you're going to do. One of my mentors used to say to me, Mike, it looks really good on paper. I was really good at writing it down and saying, this is what I think we should do. But then there comes the point that you have to believe in it and act upon it if you want to accomplish what God wants you to accomplish. John Sculley, the former CEO of Pepsi and Apple Computer, said the future belongs to those who see possibilities before they become obvious. I wonder if you are that type of a person. We're coming into a time, and again, as most of you will be watching this, the election will happen this week. It will have been recorded several days before that. But things could drastically change in our country. And we have seen things, no matter what happens in the elections, drastically change in our country over this year. Are you seeing possibilities? Are you seeing possibilities before they become obvious? Because if you're not, then God can't use you. Look at those situations and say, this is something that God may be able to use me in to make, and I don't have time to talk about it, but boy, I go back to when we started recording these videos and I didn't want to do it. And it wasn't obvious to me. And I look back now and think what God is doing. But you've got to see those possibilities before they become obvious. Cattle must be driven, but sheep are not driven. And Jesus knew exactly what he was talking about when he didn't call us cattle, he called us sheep. Sheep have to be led. And if you try to drive sheep and sheep get any inkling that you are driving them, it is not going to end well in that experience. You must lead them. I was talking to someone the other day about people that are confrontational, and I know lots of ministers, and I have fallen into that category myself, that are very passionate about things. And when you become so passionate about things, you often become confrontational. And when we become confrontational and we begin to try to drive people to Jesus Christ and begin to try to drive people to accept the things that we say and to believe in what we say, and that's just spiritually, politically, business-wise, economically, all of those things, socially, when we try to drive them, it doesn't end well. What we've got to learn is that we are leading people to Jesus Christ. We are leading people to understand what it is that we believe in and what it is that we are passionate about. One person said, a good leader is a guy who can step on your toes without messing up your shine. And that's a great comment. We as Christians, especially in our day and time, and when we put these attitudes out there on Facebook, I'm pretty sure that we're not drawing anybody to Jesus Christ by telling them that they can't be Christians if this is what they think, or telling them that they are nothing, or they are stupid, or any of those kinds of. We're not drawing anybody to Jesus Christ by those attitudes. And my job is not to convince you to agree with me. My job is to bring you to Jesus. And if I want to be a good leader among the sheep, not just the sheep of Christ's pasture, but the sheep of the other pastures, if I want to be a good leader to, or a good director to them, I need to be a leader and not a driver. Winston Churchill reflected on his role as a leader in World War II, and he said this: there is a special moment when a person is figuratively tapped on the shoulder and offered the chance to do a very special thing unique to him and fitted to his talents. What a tragedy if that moment finds him unprepared and unqualified for the work which would have been his best hour, his finest hour. One of the things that causes me great concern is that someday I will stand before Jesus and he will say to me, Mike, come and let me show you what you could have done if you would have just trusted me. That's a frightening thought to me. I don't want God to ever say to me, if you would have just trusted me, you could have done much more than what you did. And so we are tapped in that moment by God. And don't think that it's always going to be this great glittery thing where we're going to preach to a crusade of 10,000 people. Most of the time it's going to be one person that we are reaching out to. But in that moment, God taps us on the shoulder and says, I want to use you. And we want to be ready and willing to be used of God. If you want to be ready and willing to be used of God, then you realize that that takes discipline in our lives. Discipleship, discipline, the same term that it comes from. When you first start running, exercising, whatever you may be doing, but you take running for the example, you may think that you have run miles and then come to the realization that you've only gone 2/10 of a mile. Why do you think you've gone further? Because your stomach hurts and your legs are stiff and you're sweating and your heart is beating and your head hurts and you're thinking, wow, I must have gone a long way. And you only went 2/10 of a mile. We're out of shape. That's why that happens, is we're out of shape. And so what you've got to do is you just keep sticking with it, and you do it day after day after day. And pretty soon you begin to realize that you are going further and further and further, and it's more and more enjoyable, because discipline becomes joy when you see the fruits of that discipline. And so you don't get frustrated in that. I've gone through the same thing in praying. When we first started doing the prayer vigils, and we went on for 24 hours, and each person took an hour, and boy, I would come into my hour and I'd be all fired up and passionate, and I'd just start pouring out my heart and praying with everything inside of me. And when I was done, I thought, wow, I must have prayed a good 50 minutes by now. And I'd look down at my watch and I had prayed 5. You get so frustrated. It's like, wow, God, what am I going to say for the next 55 minutes? We don't do it quite as much now, because we've got less people that are coming to my current church, and so we do it over 12 hours, and each one takes a half hour. And it seems to me like that half hour is gone before you even blink. Is that because I'm such a great prayer warrior? No, it's because you keep on praying. And pretty soon you begin to learn to pray not out of crisis, but you learn to pray out of relationship. And as you are doing that and you're talking to the Lord, you don't run out of things to say. Don't get frustrated and give up. Keep on praying. Keep on reading. I don't care if you feel like doing it or not. That's insignificant. That's where the discipline comes in. And you say, I'm going to continue to do this until it becomes such a part of my life that it no longer seems like I am spending all of that time trying to do it. Mark Twain said, the only way to keep your health is to eat what you don't want, and drink what you don't like, and do what you would rather not. There it is. It isn't easy. It isn't easy to do it. Coach Tom Landry from the Dallas Cowboys said, the job of a football coach is to make men do what they don't want to do in order to achieve what they've always wanted to be. That's discipline. That's discipleship. People may not like that we tell them that they need to practice discipline in their lives to be a godly person. But if you're going to go forward, you have to do these things. And they will become a part of you until you may be surprised that you become literally a world changer. But it takes a lot. It takes a foundation. When a skyscraper is built, they build the foundation as deep into the ground as what they build the building high. What we notice is the big height of the building and say, wow, how spectacular is the height of that building. It is huge. But what we don't realize is if it doesn't have the foundation, the walls will crack. It will not be able to stand. It takes the foundation to make that happen. And it's the same way in our Christian walk. We come into our Christian walk and we want to be doing these things just like that with a snap, and it doesn't work that way. It doesn't work that way. God has to build the foundation, and we develop these attitudes in us that makes us warriors for Jesus Christ. Leonard Ravenhill wrote years ago, we are mostly 10 miles wide and 2 inches deep. And that's where most of us walk in our spiritual walk. We've got all this width because we want to touch all of these lives and we want to do all of these great things, but we have no depth. So we quickly crumble when problems come. And God doesn't need that in His kingdom. He needs people that will stand firm when the problems come. Jesus needs disciples today, as He did back then, who are walking in spiritual discipline. He needs ones who aren't just running after the latest so-called revival or the latest so-called fad or the latest so-called book or the latest so-called... And I watch Christians do that over and over again. Chase after this and that, and somebody said, and this one wrote, and they're just chasing after all that. The latest revival. Oh, we need to go to this place or that place because they're having revival there. He needs ones that are having revival within themselves. And when we are having revival within ourselves, the circumstances around us doesn't matter. I may offend several people in saying this, but I have said it numerous times. I was a Reagan fan. When I graduated high school, I became a Reaganite just right away and went right into the battlefield with that politically. But after Ronald Reagan left office and then George H.W. Bush took office, I wasn't a big fan of his, but every morning I got up and did ministry. Then I believe it was Bill Clinton who took over, and I certainly wasn't a fan of his, but I got up every day and did ministry. Then George W. Bush took over. I got up every day and did ministry. And then Barack Obama took over, probably my least favorite of all of them. And I got up every day and did ministry. Then Donald Trump became president, and I got up every day and did ministry. And I don't know who's going to become president in this next election. I certainly have one that I am praying for really, really hard, because I think the other is going to be a disaster. But no matter what happens, I'll get up every day and do ministry. You say, Mike, are you bragging on yourself? No. I'm saying if revival is happening in you, quit praying for revival to happen all over the place and start praying for revival to happen in you. And when revival happens in you, the circumstances around you no longer make any difference. Kind of a forward, blunt question. When people think about you, would they say their life is better or worse or insignificantly changed for having known you? I want to be a person, and this has been my prayer, in a place that I really am not happy. But I say, God, if I project that off to other people, then that's going to be disastrous. I want to be that type of person where everybody that I come in contact with is influenced in some way. It may just be a smile on my face, or it may be a word of encouragement or whatever, but I want that to be something positive. When people think about knowing you, do they think they're better or worse or insignificantly changed? When it comes to commitment, there are 4 types of people. I don't know who said this, but I think it's powerful. There are the cop-outs, people who have no goals and do not commit to anything. There are the holdouts, people who don't know if they can reach their goals, so they're afraid to commit. The dropouts, people who start toward a goal but quit when the going gets tough. And the all-outs, people who set goals, commit to them, and pay the price to reach them. That's the kind of person that I want to be. And we can do that, and we can lead and bless and not have to turn away from our standards. I love the story of the 19th century circuit riding preacher I quoted in numerous messages. His name was Peter Cartwright, and he was preparing to deliver a sermon one Sunday, and a person approached him and warned him that President Andrew Jackson was in attendance on that Sunday service. And he was asked to keep his comments inoffensive. During that message, Peter Cartwright, and I don't see this as mean, I don't see this as being confrontational, it's just telling the truth. And that's exactly what he did. And I think that's great to have that standard. You don't have to be mean in doing that. You don't have to, in other words, you don't have to mess up the shine on their shoes. But you can tell them the truth. And this is what Peter Cartwright said: I have been told that Andrew Jackson is in the congregation, and I have been asked to guard my remarks. What I must say is that Andrew Jackson will go to hell if he doesn't repent of his sin. After the sermon, Andrew Jackson strode up to Peter Cartwright and said, "Sir, if I had a regiment of men like you, I could whip the world." See, that's leading and not driving, but it is doing it in a way that doesn't harm the relationship. I hope that you're picking up on what I'm saying here. If God wants to use you in ministry, it's not always about proving yourself right, because you'll just drive people away. But it's also not about backing down from your standard, because you'll lead people away. And so we want to lead people to Jesus Christ with the truth. You shall know the truth, and the truth shall set you free. Molly Ivins, who was a columnist, said, "The first rule of holes is when you're in one, stop digging." So profound. When you're in the hole, stop digging the hole. It's time to quit. One of my counselors years ago said to me, one of our problems, Mike, is that we go down the street and we fall in the hole. And then tomorrow we get up and we go down the same street, we fall in the hole. And then the next day, we get up and go down the same street and fall down the hole. Eventually, we've got to realize, choose a different street. Go down a different street. Don't go up to the hole. You're going to fall in. So many of us live our lives just falling into hole after hole after hole, and sometimes it's the same one. Sometimes emotionally and spiritually and physically, we fall into that same hole. Quit going down that street. Larry King said, "I remind myself every morning, nothing I say this day will teach me anything. So I'm going to learn. If I'm going to learn, I must do it by listening." David Berkeley, television journalist, a successful man is one who can lay a firm foundation with the bricks that others have thrown at him. If you've never had bricks thrown at you, well, thank God for that. I've had lots of bricks thrown at me, not necessarily physical ones, but certainly verbal ones and emotional ones. Take those to build the foundation. Make yourself stronger when people come at you, because they're going to, and it's going to get worse. And you're not going to learn anything when you think you know everything. Founder of McDonald's, Ray Kroc, said, "As long as you're green, you're growing. As soon as you're ripe, you start to rot." And that happens so much with people. So much. They think they've matured. They think they know more than they know. I'm amazed by that. Every time I think that I have an understanding of Scripture, I read it over again and I think, wow, I didn't understand that at all. That's okay. That's okay. God's bigger than us and smarter than us. It's okay that I don't understand everything about Him. But as soon as I think I'm ripe, I heard a man say to me years back, "I don't need to read the Bible. I already know what it says." And when somebody says that, they're in trouble. And he ended up in prison. When you think that you know everything and you are ripe, then you begin to rot. We're not going to learn anything by what we say. We learn by listening. So listen. Listen to the wisdom of others. Listen to the wisdom of the Holy Spirit. Teachability requires us to admit that we don't know everything, and that can make us look bad. Yes, because people want preachers that know everything, but we don't. In addition, if we keep learning, we must also keep making mistakes. Writer and expert craftsman Elbert Hubbard said the greatest mistake one can make in life is to be continually fearing that you will make one. You cannot be prideful and teachable at the same time. To gain growth, give up your pride. So if you want to be teachable, get rid of this attitude that you know everything and let God teach you and make you ready to be his bride. John Wooden, the great basketball coach, said it is what you learn after you know it all that counts. Amen. It's what you learn after you know it all that counts. Learn to say no to the good so you can say yes to the best. Jack Hayford, great preacher, said our goal is not to build a big church, but to build big people. And that's God's desire. If you want to be an eagle, you're not going to flock. You're going to be flying out there sometimes when you feel all alone, but God is going to use you and make you a great warrior for the kingdom. I hope that you were encouraged today. That was our goal in this message of the way church should be done. Be sure and tune in next week as we deal with the persecuted church. God bless you. Thank you for watching.